Merry Christmas if you're Chicago Blackhawks fans. Who says you can't go home again? We'll get into the details coming up. In baseball, we're less than 10 days away from the trade deadline. What will the Cubs and the White Sox do to improve their rosters? The Cubs will travel to Pittsburgh to take on Paul Skeens and the Pittsburgh Pirates, while the Sox will have an important series. That's right, I said it. An important series this weekend against the Houston Astros. And oh boy, there's going to be something if the White Sox lose that series. But anyway, look, me and LaKeena will also talk about the ESPN layoffs. What's this mean for the future of sports media, corporate versus YouTube? We'll get into that, and we'll have a whole lot more surprises and nuggets along the way. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. The Friday Fun edition of Second City Sports starts now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, a drive in the left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! Robert Jr., his fourth of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide. Up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Bennington. No chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Giddy, what a pass. Buzelis with the fake on the drive.
Uzi motions left. They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb throws. Middle of the field. Loveland catch. Breaks away the 30. Loveland 20. Loveland 10. Loveland end zone. Touchdown Bears.
Welcome to another fun-filled Friday Fun edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here. You know it's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
Be sure to download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. If you're watching us live in living color right now on YouTube, after you hit that like button, if it's available, please hype the video so we can get this content out to as many people as we can as we make this show your number one destination for the best of Chicago and national sports talk. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion, do not 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You got to hit us up right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, just like the Miami Heat, if you don't know what we're talking about, we'll reference that coming up. If you have something stupid, dumb, or silly to say, I've given LaKeena full powers to give you Dumbos to Bill and be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to our live gang. That's LIVE Live Entertainment gang that's checking us out live in the living color right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube at 12:22 p.m. Central Standard Time. But as always, much love to the replay gang that's checking us out on the replay, also at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Don't you ever forget our motto where we talk sports, music, or entertainment. We will always provide.
Provide you some of the best around Second City Sports. Who says you can't go home again? As Patrick Kane surprises some by coming back to the Blackhawks, and they just had the introductory presser just now. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the ESPN layoffs and other things going on at the network, and also NFL Network as well, and other sports media nuggets. The Cubs and White Sox have big series coming up this weekend. Also a few other surprises as well. And which NFL teams are under or overrated coming into the season as training camp starts to open up more and more here, as we're going to be doing this for the next few days throughout the weekend into the beginning of next week. So we'll talk about that list and so much more. But as usual, Mr. LeBron James, of course, at about 10:30-ish Central Time, Sean Sharnia, as usual. I think people had to double check and make sure this is his actual account because there's a lot of big accounts out there for Shams. But he announced that LeBron is signing a 2-year, $8 million deal to go to the Philadelphia 76ers. Huh? Yep, this is according to Rich Paul, LeBron's longtime friend and agent. He announced it to ESPN. He told ESPN Sean Sharnia coming up here, and we'll get to the implications of this in a second, but it sort of started spraying like wildfire. Pennsylvania's governor Josh Shapiro already has declared today as LeBron James Day. that should be out when he posted that, but. I guess, but yeah. Also, too, here's your potential lineup with LeBron. They'll check this out. So you got Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Jaylen Brown, who of course remember, he was traded from the Celtics to the Sixers, and Joel Embiid with LeBron. Now there are people already saying there might not be enough basketballs to go around, but Sid, what do you think about this news?
We talked about this for the last few weeks that it was for basketball. Obviously, for basketball reasons, it made sense, but we didn't think that the Sixers will pull the trigger and get this thing done because LeBron James said he wasn't going to play for the minimum. But looking at this lineup, as you mentioned, with Jaylen Brown, VJ Edgecombe, who's going into this second year, of course, Tyrese Maxey, let's not forget him, a multi-year All-Star as well. This is a good lineup, but for LeBron James, and we saw this in spurts with the Lakers when they were healthy at the second half of last year, you don't have to be the number one guy to affect the team. We all know that LeBron James has been a hell of a passer throughout his entirety of his career. Now, with this potential starting five, he could truly be a facilitator. He doesn't have to dominate the ball, scoring 25, 26 points a game. Those days are long gone. Jaylen Brown will be the number one guy on that floor right now. Tyrese Maxey will follow him second. VJ come third. Joel Embiid, if he can stay healthy, there's no more excuses now. He could be the third, sometimes the fourth option, depends on who's on the floor. So for all intents and purposes, it's going to work for the Philadelphia 76ers if the guys, one, can accept their roles early on, and that starts in training camp. Number two, they got to do something with their bench. And number three, can they stay healthy? If those three things can correlate throughout the course of the regular season, the sky's the limit for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, it really is. And look, I mean, they're definitely going to be the favorites in the East, obviously. But remember, the reigning champion New York Knicks, you got a lot of their guys back. They're going to have a lot of their guys back for the most part. And people forget about Miami. Yeah, there was this little post that went viral on Wednesday saying that, hey, there's going to be an introductory presser about LeBron coming to the Heat. Well, unfortunately, that didn't work. So, there you go with that one. But yeah, I mean, look, you got, of course, Giannis is over there now. Of course, you got Bam Adebayo, you got Andrew Wiggins over there too. So there's still going to be a pretty formidable team there as well. So yeah, I think with the Sixers, look, really the main thing is that can Joel Embiid stay healthy? That's really going to be like the number one question, because he's been the show of himself the last couple of years, unfortunately. So that's going to be the thing here. And also Tyrese Maxey. He's shown that he's a really solid supporting cast guy. BJ Edgecombe has been on the rise too the last couple of years. Jaylen Brown, we know what he can do. We see what he can do. So, again, it's going to be very interesting to see. And also, it happens to be Nick Nurse's birthday, by the way. So happy birthday to him. I know it was a nice little present birthday present for him. Get a chance to coach LeBron. But yeah, so it's going to be very interesting in the East, to say the least.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Hall Chicago. Sid LaKeena hanging out here with you on this Friday Funk edition, talking about LeBron James, the free agent, the future Hall of Famer, signing with the Philadelphia 76ers. The news came out earlier today for 2 years, and the average salary totaling up to $8 million. So can you bring up the Eastern Conference? I'm sure there's somebody from Philadelphia calling you right now, but you bring up the Eastern Conference. Conference. Let's take a look at the competition. You mentioned about the New York Knicks. Most of their guys are back except for Mitchell Robinson, who signed a free agent contract with the Boston Celtics. Let's take a look at the Celtics. You have Paul George, who was acquired via trade in exchange for Jaylen Brown earlier this offseason. You still have Jason Tatum, assuming that he's going to be healthy for next year. They still have a formidable bench and a very good firing line, which I think is going to give Philadelphia problems. It didn't happen last spring as Philadelphia beat the Celtics in Game 7 on the road last year. The Detroit Pistons, they still need shooters. I think they still have some work to do. We saw that in the playoffs last year. And also, so you have to take a look at some of the other teams that are knocking on the door in the Eastern Conference right there. Like you said, with the Miami Heat, hopefully they can get another shooter or two to go with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So Philadelphia, as we said throughout this process, trust the process. Anybody here, if you're a Philadelphia fan, you heard that phrase from almost about a decade now. But we said throughout this process, LeBron was looking for, the road less traveled. He chose Philadelphia. I think the Eastern Conference on paper has gotten better. But if he would have stayed with the rest of the conference, whether it was with the Lakers, it was going to get tougher. So choosing Philadelphia made sense for him, not just only championship-wise, but competition-wise as well.
And apparently he's going to be based in New York City, and it's only a 45-minute chopper ride from Philadelphia to New York. And also, I think by train it's about 2.5 hours. So he'll have his choice of what to do here, for practices and home games and such. But that's going to be something they're going to have to figure out. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, this is going to be very interesting though. Like we talked about the starting lineup for Philadelphia, or the potential, I should say, for Philly. I think also it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be that that lead off, like 6th, 7th guy off the bench. I mean, you've got it's going to be very interesting. You got Anthony Simons, who they just picked up. He's probably going to be that 6th man off the bench. Dean Wade, I know people have been talking. His name's been brought up a lot too as potential. Perhaps maybe a 6th, 7th guy off the bench as well. So yeah, I think Nick Nurse, I think he'll have a lot of pieces to play with, which is not a bad thing. But sometimes you got to figure out who's going to be that floor general. Well, you got to think, will it be the number one guy? Will it be Maxey? Will it be LeBron or Jaylen Brown? Remember, look, he's the one guy you can say, hey, I just won a ring just a couple years ago. So that's going to be a few years ago. So that's going to be another thing here as well with that. So it kind of feels like it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens up there in Philly, because I think there's going to be a lot of questions about, can this team coexist?
And that's why training camp is so important. You lay down the groundwork. You lay down your mission statement. What's our philosophy going to be on offense? How are we going to defend defensively? We know that LeBron James, with his advanced age, he's not the quickest defender anymore like he was about 10, 12 years ago. So I think it's going to be a challenge for Nick Nurse, assuming that everybody stays healthy for the majority of the regular season. What will Nick Nurse do as far as dividing the minutes? We already know the starting lineup, how he's going to manage those minutes. And like you said, who's going to be those unsung heroes? They're going to be asked to do a lot as well coming off the bench. And who's going to get that extra player time, having been someone from that starting five has a major injury. So a lot of questions that I think is going to take time. I know some folks don't want to hear this, but it's going to take time to see who's going to fill in those roles, because everybody wants to, even with today's style of basketball, using in quotes here, with today's style of basketball, everybody's not going to average 20 points a game. It's just not going to happen. So guys are going to have to fit in specific roles. Who's going to rebound? Who's going to defend? Who's going to be that facilitator outside LeBron James? So it's a lot of questions that has to get answered, but I think it's going to take at least maybe to the All-Star break to at least find out some of those answers. But that's why we don't get paid the big bucks. Head coach Nick Nurse does, so he has he has a lot of good options on paper, but it's easier said than done. But those roles will have to be sorted out, and it starts at training camp.
And LeBron, to his credit, though, did say this is his last decision, if you will. So basically, he's saying that these next 2 years, with this season coming up, and next season is going to be his last two in playing for his playing career. So we'll see if that's the case. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you can call it ring chasing, you can call it this or that. I know Cleveland folks are probably going to be pissed. I know Miami fans are probably certainly pissed, and even maybe Clippers or even Golden State as well. But I think this is gonna be a very interesting. And this season coming up, we know, look, training camp starts in a couple of months in September. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of eyes on Philly. So we'll see what happens.
I'll give you a wrap up here quickly about some of the teams you mentioned that lost out. Miami, as I said, excuse me, that was a bad idea because I assumed that LeBron James was going to use that as a vacation spot. Of course, Pat Riley, as we know, wasn't going to have any of that. Some people said the Minnesota Timberwolves. I know they traded for LaMelo Ball or earlier this offseason. They shipped Julius Randle out to Brooklyn. He's playing for the Nets now. So it's Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball. We'll see what happens with that. And then, excuse me. Of course, you have the Cleveland Cavaliers. I thought he was going to Cleveland. Apparently, Cleveland didn't have enough. I'm sure they wanted to trade a couple of people, acquire a couple of people to entice LeBron James to come there. But unfortunately, they don't have enough. I know they re-signed Donovan Mitchell. I know as of right now, they still have James Harden. But if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, you're really stuck in the middle. And the city that we're broadcasting from now, Chicago now, of course, the Bulls have now picked a lane because they're starting over. But as we talked about before, LaKeena, with me with the Bulls for as long as we've done this show, you have to pick a lane of where you're going to go as a franchise. For the years until this past offseason, the Bulls were stuck in the middle, and that's where the Cleveland Cavaliers are. They're stuck in the middle. If LeBron James would have went home back to Cleveland, I thought that their chances would increase tremendously in terms of winning a championship. You saw what they did last year. They lost in the sweep in the Eastern Conference Finals to the eventual champion New York Knicks. If you're a Cleveland Cavaliers fan, you have to wonder now. Yes, Donovan Mitchell, he does all that he can do. You still have James Harden, but the rest of that roster is just average at best. You're not bad enough to tank, but you're not great enough to compete with those top 3, top 4 teams that we just mentioned a moment ago to win the NBA championship. Want to know what NBA hell looks like? You're looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers, unfortunately, if you're a Cavs fan.
Yeah, so we've seen this movie before with the Bulls, so I don't think I think in the end, I know some people wanted LeBron to go to back to Cleveland, but I think in the end, like you said, I think that roster as a whole, outside of Spider, Mitchell, Harden, and even Jared Allen, there really isn't that much. So you probably like, nah, I don't. So he probably just said, nah, I'm good there. So yeah, that's probably why Philly has some little guys, like I said, with Simons and Wade and those guys. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this, because I really think it's going to be what kind of offense they run, what kind of defense that they run. So yeah, that's going to be the number one question as we get into training camp coming up in a little over a month from now in September. Take a really quick break. Of course, we're going to switch gears to talk about stuff on the diamond. Both the Cubs and the White Sox have big series coming up this weekend. Also, 2 more trade deadline rumors coming up. We'll see if some big stars could be on the move. And also the Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony is this weekend. I don't think people forgot about that, but we'll talk about that a little bit too. Coming up next, LaKeena McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Diamond Talk coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops. Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe. But some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGetty, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
It's your Locked and Loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me. LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, again, IG.
We're going to dive into the world of MLB talking Cubs, Sox, and the rest of Major League Baseball, the best and worst, the good, the bad, and the ugly from this past week. So if you have any questions or comments regarding the subject of baseball, you can definitely hit us up right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
We'll start with the White Sox as they won 2 out of 3 down in Texas with some great pitching performances and also timely hitting, as has usually been the theme here this year after getting shut out in the Tuesday game of that series 10-0. But they came back and won that series thanks to Chase Maedroff and Andrew Benintendi. Some big hits for them. Maedroff with 4 for 4 and Benintendi drove in a couple of big runs to seal that series. Now they're going to be facing Houston, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they do here once they're back home. The weather should be it's going to be a little bit warmer starting tomorrow and a little bit humid, so the bats should come alive in that series with Houston. Now I want to get to this. I'll get to this in a second, but because World Series champion for the White Sox, 05, Brian Anderson. I'll get to his proclamation in a second here, but yeah. So I think for the White Sox, I mean, I kind of look. You did okay against Texas. Look, Texas has been up and down. We'll get to the rest of the AL West in a minute here, but look, Houston, they've been up and down. They've had a lot of injuries. They don't seem to be a factor, although they did sweep the Marlins. I think the Marlins are in free for all. Again, we'll talk about them in a bit here, but for me, I think that the White Sox just got to keep doing what they're doing. They're a game and a half up on Cleveland. This is, I don't want to say this is a soft part of their schedule because this is like the Houston before they start playing. They got a 4-game against the Yankees in Tampa and also Boston as well. We'll talk about the role Boston is and also Cleveland. So yeah, you can't get caught looking ahead in this series against Houston. You should be able to take care of business against Houston, but don't look ahead. I'll say that.
Well, it's one of the many criticisms that this White Sox team has faced this year. Oh, they can't be a good team. So you can only be who you have on your schedule at that present time. The White Sox have done that for the most part this year. There's another criticism. Oh, they can't win on the road. I'll wait. They're 4-2 since the All Star break. They won at Toronto, taking 2 out of 3, and they won at Texas, who still currently lead the god awful AL West by a half a game or a game and a half, whatever the hell it is. The White Sox took care of them. 2 out of 3. Oh, another criticism. Oh, the White Sox can't win any games without hitting a home run. Both those series games against Texas, they won without a home run. Thank you very much. For those of you that couldn't hear me whispering, both those games that the White Sox won against the Texas Rangers. They did not hit not one home run, zero, not a home run. So what more can this team do? I feel like Tyrese, LaKeena. What more do you want from me? Here's what we want for the White Sox. GM Chris Getz, led by owner Jerry Reinsdorf, please let Chris Getz cook and make a move for a veteran arm in that starting rotation and the bullpen between now and next weekend's trade deadline. Please do that, because what I saw on Tuesday night with Noah Schultz, the young man got shelled, and I do not want to see him pitch, at least in the starting rotation for the foreseeable future. And it's just not good. But I will give props to the White Sox bullpen. Brian Hudson, who got to save the other night. Grant Taylor came in and shut it down. Sean Newcomb has been pitching his heart out for the last month and a half. So the White Sox bullpen is good, but they need to for them to make it to the next level, they're going to have to acquire not just whoever is a right-handed or left-handed veteran reliever, and you need a veteran starting pitcher in that starting rotation. Davis Martin, even though he pitched well a week ago tomorrow against in his last start at Toronto, Sean Burke is turning that corner in his last 3 starts. Those two are leading your pitching staff right now. Anthony Kay, I saw that performance against Texas the other night. He did not look good stat-wise, but he did get out of a couple of jams. But if you face against better teams, if you have to make the playoffs, you cannot get away with it. So you need to tighten that up. But your starting rotation is led by Davis Martin and Sean Burke. You need a veteran starter. Hopefully the White Sox can do that between now and next weekend's trade deadline. And to your point, just to wrap up here, the Houston Astros, as I said at the beginning on our show in our intro, as we say in football, these are trap games, and you play down to your competition. Sometimes you may get burned. The White Sox, they're a good team. Yes, they are, but I don't think they're going to be caught looking ahead against the Houston Astros. As you mentioned, they swept the Marlins at home earlier this week. And number 2, yes, the White Sox are good at home. They're 14 games over 500 down there in Sox Park. Yes, and the balls and the weather is going to be lively this weekend. But Houston has some players over there too. So the White Sox better come ready to play, because as we said around this time of year, LaKeena, as we enter the dog days of summer, any team can beat anybody at any given time. And for you fans attending the games this weekend, don't overlook the Houston Astros. They could come and bite you in the butt. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean, they're facing one of those guys going to be facing for the Astros is Yordan Alvarez, and he has at least a share of the MLB lead in home runs, RBIs, extra base hits, total bases, times reaching base, and intentional walks. And no player has finished a season leading all those categories, or at the very least near the top of all those categories. You got to go all the way back to when intentional walks became official back in 1955. So yeah, they're going to be facing a pretty solid Astros lineup. So yeah, I'm sure Will Venable will have his guys ready. Now your starting rotations for this weekend: Davis Martin against Spencer Arrighetti. That should be a fun pitcher's duel. There you have Sean Burke, who's had a solid last couple outings. He faces Hunter Brown. And in the rubber match, you got Eric Fetty against Ronel Blanco. That could just be a bullpen type of start for Houston. So we'll see what happens in that series. But yeah, like I said, after this, it gets really hard. So I think folks need to, White Sox fans, I'm talking to you, Brian Anderson, who basically said that the White Sox are going to win the World Series. I would say slow down on that little proclamation, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think if you're the White Sox, they look, just don't get caught looking to get ahead against Houston. We know it gets tough after this, but just try to take care of business, and we can go from there.
I think the White Sox will take at least 2 out of 3 against the Houston Astros this weekend. But I'm gonna put them on the table, as a good friend Kid Davis would say. Put them on the table. I expect a sweep from this White Sox team. You got 2 of your best pitchers going in this series. As we mentioned, the weather is going to get interesting this weekend in a good way, and those bets should come alive. And the White Sox usually do well at home. So I'm putting them on the table. The White Sox will win this series. They'll win this series in a sweep of going away before, as you mentioned, they'll face a tough schedule coming up in the next 2 weeks. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. City, LaKeena, hanging out here with you, talking Cubs, Sox, and the rest of Major League Baseball. Let's transition up to the north side, LaKeena. Are you starting to worry a little bit? The Cubs lose 2 out of 3 to the now surging. I'm using air quotes here for those of you that stepped away. The Cubs have lost 2 out of 3 to the surging Detroit Tigers at home earlier this week. I know there were some encouraging signs in the first couple of games of that series, at least offensively, as we told you that you expected to see. But going back out on the road this weekend to take on the Pittsburgh Pirates, a team that's giving you problems over the last few years, you're at a crossroads right now. And so I'm not going to say confidence is an issue with this team, but you need to reestablish consistency here before certain things may come clear that you may not be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, look, you lose 2 out of 3 to Detroit. Look, Detroit, that they should have won that game on Monday, losing to them in 10 innings. To the bullpen credit, they try to hang on as much as they could, but unfortunately, Spencer Torkelson hit a 2-run single, and that kind of did it for them in that 10th inning in that game on Monday. And Kenley Jansen, of course, came on and was able to shut the door. That the Cubs actually did have a chance to perhaps tie it, but they shut the Tigers shut the door there. But I think for me, I think this is just a look. I mean, it kind of this is when the schedule gets real, I guess. Because after this Pirates series, they face St. Louis. They face the Mets. The Mets, we know they've been the Yankees. The Yankees, I should say. So that's not because the Yankees actually gets to go cross town and face because they're gonna be facing the White Sox. But next week too. And then they face the Dodgers too. Now they do get both of them at home, so they'll be able to feed off that home crowd. The crowd's gonna be rocking a little bit at Wrigley. But I think for me, it's just as one of those things where you should have taken care of business in this series against Detroit. Pittsburgh, yes, you've had your problem against Pittsburgh. You do have to face Paul Skeens against Shota Imanaga. That's tomorrow. Then you got Matthew Boyd against Jared Jones. That's the first game on tonight. And also you got James Taillon, who did not have a good start. Let's be honest, coming his first start back. Now he has to face Braxton Ashcroft, who's one of the top pitchers there as well. So it doesn't get any easy for the Cubs. Now, I would say, look, for me, just win 2 out of 3 if you can. Try to get the bats going. Hopefully, Shota could be the Shota that we've seen. Hope we get the good Shota tomorrow against Skeens. We know Skeens has a 1.8 ERA or something like that against the Cubs. So, we'll see. But, I think just win 2 out of 3. I know it's going to be hard, but I think just try to win 2 out of 3 against the Pirates so you can get that murderer's row of a schedule that gets really tough.
Yeah, as we talked about on our last show on Monday, this offense needs to carry this team until some healthy bodies return, in particular that starting rotation. And we all know that bullpen needs to get fixed. Will Jed Hoyer and Carter Harkins accomplish their goal, acquiring a veteran left-hander via trade between now and next Monday's, not this coming Monday, but the following Monday's August 3rd trade deadline? Those questions remain to be answered. But this offense, we saw the highs and the lows in this series against the Tigers. You mentioned on Monday they should have won that game, but the bullpen let them down. Tuesday, it was a free-for-all up there at Wrigley Field. And, of course, Wednesday, the bats went cold after Seiya Suzuki's home run to open the game for Chicago. But I want to focus in on these two players. They did not have good games on Wednesday. They went combined 0 for 8. I'm talking about Nico Horner and Alex Bregman. It seems like I've been asking you this question about 10, 12 times so far this year. I'll ask it one more time in this episode. How worried about these two players? Bregman looks like he was starting to come out of it a little bit. Now he's starting to go back to his old ways of struggling. And of course, Nico Horner with the 0 for 4 performance on Wednesday. Now his bat average overall is down to 244. We talk about Nico Horner and Alex Bregman both struggling, going 0 for 8 combined the other night. That certainly didn't help Chicago. Michael Busch, looks like he's starting to come out of it a little bit. You saw what he did in the series victory on Tuesday. He went 1 for 4 in the game on Wednesday. Seiya Suzuki, it looks like he's starting to come out of it a little bit. As I mentioned, he hit the home run to start off the game for Chicago the other night. And after that, the Cubs offense just went blank. But I want to talk about their pitching. Their starting pitcher has been asked to do a lot this year. David Peterson had a strong start on Tuesday. Of course, it was helped up by their offense. By the offense, so it was easy for him to relax on the mound and get guys out for the Detroit Tigers. I thought his stuff was excellent. He fooled the Detroit hitters. His breaking ball was very good, and his fastball was in very good command as well. Colin Ray, you asked a lot from him so far this year. Unfortunately, he took the loss the other night in that series finale against the Tigers. He pitched 5 innings, giving us 6 hits, 4 earned runs, 5 strikeouts to 1 walk. He's been asked to do a lot this year. Is very tough to ask someone to switch different roles in the middle of the year. Guys like him and Javier Saad have done a lot for this Cubs team. Switching roles due to injuries a lot during this time of year. But you had for this Cubs team to get back on track, they had to carry that this offense has to carry the team and be more consistent. As LaKeena rejoins me now, I brought up the question before you stepped away. Nico Horner and Alex Raymond, when both of them went combined 0-for-8. And it seems like I asked you this question almost every episode. I asked it about 10, 12 times throughout the course of the season. How are you about those two players as they continue to struggle at the plate? Looks like Alex Raymond was starting to come out of it a little bit. He went 0-for-4 the other night. Nico Horner's average after another 0-for-4 performance, his batting average is now down to 244.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things where hopefully they can get back on track. I know Horner does actually very well in Pittsburgh, so let's hopefully he can get it going there in Pittsburgh. Like I said, I'm not worried about the Cubs right now. Like I said, just take care of business against Pittsburgh and see, try to take care of business. I know St. Louis, I know Busch, the old Busch Stadium, the new Busch Stadium, I should say, has been nothing but horrors for the Cubs, especially in recent years, especially this season. But yeah, just try to get it going and just see if you can win 2 out of 3. That's my challenge. Win 2 out of 3 in Pittsburgh, and then try with 3 out of 4 against St. Louis, and then before you get into that murderous schedule with the Yankees and the Dodgers, we'll see what happens. That's just Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown with you here as we talk about the rest of baseball for these next few minutes here. Speaking of the Yankees, now the Yankees did win 2 out of 3 against Pittsburgh. They split a doubleheader with Pittsburgh on Wednesday, and like I said, Max Fried, he had a solid hit. He had a solid out, I should say. Only 1 hit coming off the IL, so they're definitely going to need him if the Yankees want to stay up in pace with the Rays. And hopefully Aaron Judge will be back soon, but they're really going to need him back if they want to try to challenge for AL East.
Yeah, with Max Fried starting the other night, you'll see him in Chicago next week on the South Side, starting to win those 4 games against the White Sox. But as we talked about before, without Aaron Judge, the longer he's out, this Yankees team will be vulnerable at some point. Their offense is being carried by Trent Grisham, Cody Bellinger, and then young first baseman and left-handed power hitter named Ben Rice. He's the truth. I've been saying that throughout the course of the year. But the Yankees started pitching outside of Cam Schlittler has been iffy at best all year. As you mentioned, Max Fried's return definitely boosts up that rotation a lot. I know Garrett Cole is still there. He's still trying to figure things out. Carlos Rodon is injured again, so we don't know when he's going to come back. So the Yankees pitching has been up and down recently. And like we've been saying about Aaron Judge, he makes that offense go for the New York Yankees whenever he's healthy. So the sooner they get him back, the sooner I think they could chase down the Tampa Bay Rays. But this is an important series win for the Yankees to get them back on track, just from a confidence standpoint.
Yeah, it really is. Now Boston, this just in, they got their 15-game winning streak snap yesterday against Baltimore as they take a game in that series. So, like I said, we'll see if Boston is for real. We'll see in these next couple of weeks if they are. Now Tampa took care of business, winning 3 out of 4 against Toronto. So we'll see how that goes there. Cleveland. Now, one of the reasons why the Sox are 1.5 up, they split their series against Minnesota. Both Minnesota and Detroit are still Detroit's right there as well. Of course, we mentioned they went 2 out of 3. So I don't think no one's going to run away from that division. Sorry, White Sox fans. That's just not going to be the case. Now, the AL West, I should say, is concerned. I mean, look, we talked about Texas losing 2 out of 3 to the White Sox at home. Seattle, well, they didn't fare much better. They lost 2 out of 3 to Cincy at home. No excuse for that loss. losing that series. Now, Houston, even though they're below 500, they're still right there at 2 games back in that AL West. So for people that are going to say that White Sox for that series against Houston is going to be easy, it really isn't. So, yeah, I think folks need to get off that skis there. Now, look, even you can say, even though the A's are probably still within striking distance as well, I know that they lost 2 out of 3 in just outside Phoenix to the D-backs. So, but yeah, that's going to be interesting to see that AL West.
As I said 1,000 times, I'll say it 1,000 more times. Whoever can get hot for the next 2 or 3 weeks and stay consistent, I think that team is going to win that division. Do I see an additional wild card team coming out of the AL West? No, because it's an ugly log jam of bad and mediocrity there. So that's my take on the AL West again for this episode. Going back to the AL East, with the Toronto Blue Jays struggling, just winning 2 games since the All Star break, the way that Tampa took care of them earlier this week, the Toronto Blue Jays should become sellers. I'm not saying gut the whole team down, start over, but you have a couple of nice pieces, including your starting pitcher named Kevin Gausman, that you can trade to get some young prospects back. That's just me. And Vlad Guerrero Jr. has not hit a home run at home all year. That's very telling, and we'll leave it at that. Boston, as you mentioned, that 15-game winning streak was snapped, but they could be in the mix to add some talent. Now, I don't know if you saw the story where going back to the White Sox quickly, but a friend of the program, George Offman, a veteran Chicago sports broadcaster, said that he heard from someone in the White Sox camp that they almost had a trade complete for Aroldis Chapman, but this current streak of the Red Sox just killed that any potential trade there. But I think Boston is still going to be in the mix. We know that Baltimore, they're not going to be there. Toronto should be sellers. And then going back to the AL Central, I still call this run fugazi for Detroit because I don't trust their offense to be consistent in the long run. As we talked about what they did here in Chicago against the Cubs earlier this week, I know they won the first of that 4-gamer against Kansas City last night. They should be able to take care of Kansas City, but we'll see what happens. But Cleveland, I want to talk about here. I know Jose Ramirez made his return back to the lineup for the Guardians on Wednesday. He went 2 for 5, but he went 0 for 3 yesterday. And I watched that game yesterday against Minnesota. Cleveland, their bats seemed to get kind of tight during those later innings, and Minnesota took advantage of that winning they gave an extra innings in 3-1 yesterday. So as we said before, it's going to be a back and forth race between Cleveland and Chicago for the AL Central Division title. Jose Ramirez return to that line should boost up the morale for the Guardians, but it's still going to be a battle to the last week of the season, in my opinion.
Now going to the National League, we got to do this real quick. Philadelphia, they lose 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers at home. You know, that was always going to be a tough series for them. Now they're 4.5 back. The Braves are starting to find their groove a little bit. They won 3 out of 4 against the Padres. So I mean, like I said, I don't think this is going to be very interesting.
They should be sellers too.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Padres. We'll talk about the Padres in a second here. Now going into the rest of the National League, the Brewers. I mean, look, I think it's going to be interesting to see if the Brewers can keep it up. I don't think they can. This is not just me being biased, but this is the soft part of their schedule. So, yeah. So, of course, the Cubs get to the tough part. Now, the Brewers got the soft part, winning 2 out of 3 against the Mets. And now they're going to be facing the Rockies this weekend. But, you know, what more can you do with them? St. Louis, again, they had a tough showing. They lost 2 out of 3 against the Angels, and now they lost their opener against the D-bats, so they're starting to fall off a little bit. And also to the West, the Dodgers. We talked about them. They've been on a little bit of a roll. They got guys coming back, so I think if you're the Dodgers, I think it's going to be interesting to see how. I think they're definitely going to go pick up maybe another bat, maybe even a pitcher as well, especially a middle reliever. That's really that. If you want to say that's a weakness of theirs, that's their only weakness, I feel like.
Well, you know, they have a close to Edwin Diaz, who they signed in the offseason. He should be back soon, so maybe they still can add another reliever. Tanner Scott, who failed at the closest role a couple of years ago, he's starting to find his groove right now in taking that spot with Diaz being out. It's just for the Dodgers, as we said before, we'll say it again. This year is about getting key guys healthy in terms of getting ready for another potential long October playoff run. Blake Snell's been injured on the pitching staff all year. We know about Tyler Glasnow's injury issues as well. So it's all about the Dodgers getting healthy for October. As we said last year, we'll say it here and again. The Dodgers can lose 10 out of 15, 10 out of 20, but it's all about the rest of the teams in that division. I know Arizona was doing well as of late, but I still don't trust them. As I said about San Diego, I didn't want to interrupt you there. You were talking about their results against Atlanta. They should become sellers too. When you talk about in my opinion, talk about the number one disappointing team in MLB this season, it's San Diego Padres. Look at their starting rotation. It looks good on paper, but they haven't got the job done. Fernando Tatis is having a bad year. You look at some of the other guys in that lineup, outside of Manny Machado's recent hot streak, they've been inconsistent all year. It's time for them to become sellers. They had all these years to catch up to the Dodgers. They just got to look themselves in the mirror of truth with that. Hey, we came up short. We got to trade off some pieces, get some new blood in here, and see what happens.
It'll be interesting to see if Dylan Cease might be on the move. We'll see what happens in the next week or so. Now going to the schedule for this weekend: Colorado and Milwaukee. That's the first game is very early at 3:10. The Cubs and the Pirates, the Royals and Detroit, the Diamondbacks and Washington. The first game of the Yankees-Phillies series will be on Apple TV. So special note to all you folks in those cities there: Atlanta and Baltimore and Cleveland and Tampa.
The rest of your weekend series looks like this. The Dodgers will go on the East Coast road trip. They'll start in New York. They'll take on the Mets. That game tonight will be on ESPN Unlimited. San Diego will visit the Miami Marlins, who's been in free fall lately, being swept by Houston early this week on the road. Toronto will face Boston. That first game of that series will be on Apple TV Plus at the same time at 6:15 p.m. The Houston Astros, as Sean Sierra would say, they'll take on the White Sox on the south side in Chicago. Your Seattle Mariners, LaKeena, they'll go to Texas to take on the Rangers. Big series for both teams this weekend, so we'll see what happens in that. The Oakland Athletics, as we call them on this show, they'll travel to Minnesota to go to St. Louis. And the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, they'll start their road trip on the left coast. They'll take on the San Francisco Giants. That first game of this series tonight can be seen on ESPN Unlimited.
Your television schedule for the weekend: Kansas City and Detroit. The second game of that series will be on ESPN Limited tomorrow. San Diego and Miami, that'll be your FS1 Saturday game of the week. As far as your Fox schedule is concerned, most of the nation will get the Dodgers and the Mets, and Seattle and Texas. That'll be the other game. Probably a lot of you out there on the West Coast, Southwest and the West Coast will get that game. Your Peacock schedule, you got Cleveland and Tampa. And, of course, that White Sox Houston, the rubber match of that series will be on ESPN Limited at 1:10 on Sunday. And your NBC game of the week also on Peacock will be the Yankees and the Phillies. Jason Benetti will have the call, of course. Joe Girardi and John Crucky will have the call. And also Bob Costas will host the pregame. And also, too, Joey Votto will make his debut in that. This is going to be his first appearance on the pre- and post-game stuff this year. So that is your schedule for this weekend in MLB.
Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 straight ahead right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Patrick Kane returns home to Chicago to finish his career in a Blackhawks sweater. We'll get into the ESPN layoffs. We'll get into a fun story in the NFL, which includes the Chicago Bears. And we'll get into a whole lot more surprising fun stuff as well. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Chi. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a romance sport. What? It's a romance sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. Every day, no matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Everybody in a work zone is someone's somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports on the hashtag Friday Funk Edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live and living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here. You know it's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and again the IG.
As we kick off hour number 2 of this extravaganza, we're talking about the Chicago Blackhawks, Patrick Kane making his return home, and we'll get into the NFL in this half hour as well, featuring the Chicago Bears. If you have any questions or comments regarding those two topics, definitely hit us up in the comments right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Patrick Kane is back in a Blackhawks uniform. He makes his return to the Blackhawks after the last few years in Philadelphia. Now, interesting to note here that last week, of course, Blackhawk legend Chris Chelios kind of spilled a little bit of the tea. We didn't talk about that, but he said that for Kaner, it was between the Blackhawks and, of course, his home town team of Buffalo, I should say, since of course it makes sense. It's he grew up in Buffalo, he's from there, he was born and raised there, and also too, of course, the Sabres, made it to the playoffs last year. They're definitely Sox on the up and up. Blackhawks still kind of up in the air. Now I'm sure a lot of Blackhawks fans kind of woke up to the news of him coming back. Talk about Kaner return to the Blackhawks, and if you saw his presser, I know I saw it on YouTube earlier. He said that he's not coming back, but he said that he really hopes he can help his team, and I think he also has a full no trade with that 2-year deal, $8 million. So this is a bit of a surprise, Again, him and Bedard will be seeing that duo until November, till Bedard comes back from his shoulder. Recover from a shoulder surgery. So, but look, Sid, you said you challenged Kyle Davidson to make a big splash. Well, on yesterday, it looks like he did just that.
I will challenge Kyle Davidson on this. You still need to make a big trade, but I don't think it may be coming until at around the trade deadline, around All Star break time. But for right now, congratulations to Patrick Kane. One of the greatest Blackhawks of all time, perhaps the best Blackhawk of his generation. So congratulations on him returning home to finish his career in the Blackhawks uniform. Kyle Davidson, my foot is still on your neck. You still have to improve this team, but like you said, we won't see what this team is truly capable of until Connor Bedard returns sometime in the month of November. But you know about the accolades of Patrick Kane throughout his career: three-time Stanley Cup champion, numerous All-Star appearances, numerous awards, postseason and regular season awards, scoring records galore. But this moves, as we talked about before, that this moves about bridging the gap between the past and the future of this Blackhawks franchise. And you know all the young players in that locker room, but like Tyler Bertuzzi and Ryan Donato and Oliver Moore and Frank Nazar, and some of those impactful young guys. Mostly, if not all of them, grew up watching Patrick Kane during their young development years, coming up playing hockey. So they're going to learn a lot from him, not just on the ice, but off the ice as well. Connor Bedard is going to be one of the big beneficiaries of that. You know, he watched Patrick Kane as well and back in his hometown of Canada. So imagine the top power play line and the top scoring line with Patrick Kane and Connor Bedard. That is definitely going to be amazing. Patrick Kane should average close to a point a game if he stays healthy for this upcoming year. I think a lot is going to be asked for him to be placed on his shoulders for at least the first month and a half of the season because of the absence of Connor Bedard. But it's up to the other young guys to help and to step up, because Patrick Kane, even though he's still effective, we're not going to see the 2013, 2010, even 2016 Patrick Kane, because he's an older player now. He's learned a lot, so he's going to pick his spots when to take over and when to spot up. But it's all about the young guys, how quickly they can learn from Patrick Kane and incorporate their style to his style of play on the ice, whoever's going to be his line mate for the first month of the season because of the absence of Connor Bedard.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I know I've been saying that a lot, but it is because, well, I think he knows. Look, I think Blackhawks fans are pretty smart. They know that you're not going to get that 20. They got that 13 Patrick Kane. Remember, he's 30. He's going to be 38 in November. So he's definitely. You're not going to get that like peak Kaner when he was winning awards and leading the league in assists and also too he actually still has the record out for most goals by American born player or most points scored by American born player. So look, I think he feels like he really thinks he can help this team win. And I think this is going to be very interesting to see how like you said, with those young guys that you mentioned, it's going to be kind of right there too. And also I feel like this is going to be one of those things where you're just going to be like, look, you're still going to get a 30-year-old Patrick Kane. So I'm fascinated to see how this team looks. Like I said, I mean, you're not gonna have Bedard for like the first month or so of the season. So yeah, you're gonna be a while before you see those two together. But as for maybe even, I know some people said maybe, hey, Jonathan Taves coming back. He said to retire. It's only be a one-day contract. I don't think he would actually come back. I'm sure he did post something on his IG saying like he's glad that Kaner's back, but he would come back for a one-day contract and retire as a Blackhawk. Okay, cool. But yeah, I think I think this makes them a fascinating team to watch. So I'll talk about the Blackhawks. Do I think they'll compete for a Stanley Cup? No. Do I think they can at least try to make a play at the playoffs? Maybe. But like you said, Bedard has to come back. And has to stay healthy. Bertuzzi has to do his thing. Nick Lardis, he made some strides last year. He's gonna have to take it up to a high level. As well. So I'm kind of fascinated to see how these young players, like you said, a lot of these guys grew up watching him. So, we'll be interested to see how much they feed off each other. And it's going to be an exciting team to watch.
Yeah, let's not forget the goalie, Spencer Knight. We saw him, especially at the start of last year. He took off running, and then he kind of struggled there in the middle of the season. Kind of finished last year on a shaky note. I expect a complete year from Spencer Knight in goal. So we saw the potential that he has in that last year. Hopefully he can put it all together this year. I just want to read you this quote that I saw just a few minutes ago out of the X Machine world. This comes from Charlie Romiliotis. He's a Blackhawks pre and post game host on WGN Radio here in Chicago. Quoting Patrick Kane about is this a reunion or just a place to settle down, retire? He says, and I quote, "It's not like I'm coming back home to ride off into the sunset. I want to be a big player here and then help the team win," close quote. So you know where his mindset's at quickly.
Yeah, I think he. I think he said he looks. He knows he. And I said earlier. I think he feels like he can help this team, develop and take that next step, perhaps make a compete for the playoffs. I mean, I know some people will say, "Oh, you're just gonna go there and you're just gonna chill and not play a lot or whatever." But no, we know look. Patrick Kaner's a gamer. Not to be corny here, but
that's a trademark.
Yeah, so look, we saw him do that in Detroit. They just missed the playoffs. Unfortunately, the last couple of years he was there, and yeah, I think he really feels that he can help out this team, and I think he sees the potential with Bedard and a lot of the young guys you mentioned. And look, I think he feels like he contributes. So with leadership and what have you, I'm sure he's gonna once they start training camp. I know that he's gonna be teaching some of the guys and skill levels and stuff. I'm fascinated to see how Tyler Bertuzzi. That's gonna be an interesting. Little line there, but yeah, I think, like I said, I think this team's gonna be a very fascinating team to watch this season. I really do.
Yeah, and entering his second year as head coach, Jeb Bledsoe, we gave him props last year for again the most out of those young guys, especially with that surprising start to the year last year. Of course, things fell off a little bit, but this team was very competitive last year. They were not embarrassed in too many games last year, so. A lot of expectations now a lot of expectations were high going into this year anyway in terms of this team making the playoffs. But now adding Patrick Kane, who's still an effective player, the odds should increase just a little bit for this team's chances to make it to the Stanley Cup playoffs for the 2026-2027 season. You're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago. See LaKeena kicking in here with you as we kick off hour number 2 of the program. Let's transition over to the NFL. LaKeena, training camps has opened up for a couple of teams already so far in the last couple of days. Most teams will start training camp next week. Start out here in home in Chicago. The Bears rookies will report to Hallis Hall tomorrow. The rest of the team will have up to Tuesday to report. And, of course, practices will start around this time next week.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be an interesting time of year where everyone coming in and such. So the NFL is always going to be king here, and you're just you're counting the days down until that first preseason game coming up. Now, look, I mean, we got this article from the Athletic, written by Mike Jones. No, not that Mike Jones, but from the Athletic.
Like who?
Like Jones. But yeah, I mean, this is a interesting. This is a good article by. Again, this could be just his own opinion, so take it for what it's worth. But NFL's underrated, overrated teams going into to this season, and now Atlanta. He has Atlanta, Indy, Cincy. Carolina, who they've had a couple of big injuries. We'll talk about that in a second here. New Orleans, New Orleans, he thinks those teams are underrated going into the year. Now, overrated he has, now again, this is his opinion, the Cowboys, the Bills, all right, the Bears, again, this is his list, folks, the Eagles and the Patriots, those are your underrated teams. So I think he can make a case for all 10 of these teams in both categories, because I think it's going to be one of those things where, look, we'll start with the Bears first. But yeah, the Bears, I know some people want to use the fact that some experts only have the Bears as a 19% shot of winning the NFC North again. I mean, look, you want to use that as motivation, fine, but unfortunately, I think they're onto something, because look, I mean, expectations have skyrocketed, and look, we'll see how Caleb Williams, we'll see how he does. Can't afford those slow starts because folks got film on you now. That defense is still, a big question mark, especially that front seven. Look, you got Kobe Bryant, fresh off a ring with Seattle, so that helps that secondary a little bit, but that front seven is still a question mark. So for me, it's just that Mike Jones is kind of right with a lot of these teams.
And the way the Bears, as we talked about last year on the show, that the 7 of their 11 victories came within the last 2 minutes, and I think it was under 7 points or less as well. So there was a lot of games that us as Bears fans, we went through heart attacks last year. And while it was fun, it was very stressful at times, watching it as a fan. But with this team, being having a little bit of a makeover because of salary cap constraints. The Bears did get better in the draft. Let's not forget about Logan Jones, your future starting center on the offensive line. He may be playing more games sooner rather than later. Depends on how Bradbury adapts to the team. Well, he was acquired via trade from New England earlier this offseason due to the retirement of Drew Dahlman. But this is a younger and faster team on paper. And like you said, we'll see how it happens. And it's nice to not have any outside controversy going into this training camp. As we talked about on our last show, you're going to have some position battles in training camp, and particularly the offensive line and that left tackle position with Ozzie Trapillo being gone for the majority of the season, if not the entire season. Darnell Wright, can he stay healthy so he can get that new contract extension? And sticking with that secondary, Kyler Gordon, he's very good, but he's been injury prone. Jalen Johnson, remember this time last year, he had that groin injury, and we saw him play in spots at times last year as the Bears were trying to ease him into playing time. He missed just about almost the entire first half of the season. And speaking of that secondary, Kobe Bryant and Dylan Thieneman, how long is it going to take them to adapt to each other's styles and each other's games in that secondary? Because the teams they play on this schedule this year, those wide receivers on the other side, they're faster and stronger. And how can they adjust their coverage to contain most of those dynamic wide receivers that the NFL has to offer? And number 3, I'm gonna keep harping on this, but going into his third year out of the University of Miami, and he was playing in spot starts last year too. Most people are not talking about this, but Tyree Stevenson, can that number 2 defensive back spot be up for grabs? So there's some questions remaining in that Bears secondary.
Yeah, that's going to be the real thing here. And look, Devin Bush, I know they just got him, but he's a linebacker. But yeah, that's going to be another thing there too. Could he perhaps maybe move him a little bit to middle linebacker? TJ Edwards, we know that when he's healthy, he's really good. Same thing with DeMarco Jackson. A lot of question marks there. Grady Jarrett, think he's going to do his thing, but Javon Dexter, he was injured a lot last year, and I think not having Kevin Byard, who was leader of that defense, there anymore, I think that's going to be, people are not harboring on it, but I think that's really going to be kind of like the big loss for the Bears. I know Drew Dahlman retiring suddenly. Yeah, that's going to be a big hit to that O-line, but they should do okay with that O-line. You got Bradbury, you got Jonah Jackson, Darnell Wright, Braxton Jones. So I think that they're going to be okay there. It's really going to be the defense. That's going to be the thing, that D-line. I think that's really going to be the number one question for me in this Bears squad.
Yeah, and as you brought up the defensive line, we know Montez Sweat had 10.5 sacks last year. How the hell he got him? I don't know, but that's what the final statistics laid out last year. Who's going to be his dancing partner on the other side? I know they're relying on now second-year guy Shamar Turner, who they drafted last year, but he spent most of last year on the injury list. They're begging a lot out of him. Whoever else decides to step up, okay. Also, Book, as we talked about on our last show, he's a situational down person. I know he's famous for knocking out Jordan Love in the regular season match against the Packers last year. He's very good. We saw him in spots last year. It looks like he was starting to put it together. But for this team, he's not a full-time starter. Do they even give him a consideration to be a full-time starter this year? Looks like the answer is going to be no, but things could change with injuries and whatnot. So we'll see what happens. But I think the bigger issue outside of that dance part, the next opposite of Montez Sweat, is that secondary. How quickly can they come together, and who's gonna answer the bell when that bell rings on September 13th when they face the Carolina Panthers on the road? So that secondary, I think, is the number one question in my mind as they start practicing this time next week.
Yeah, look, I think speaking of the Panthers, now they've already had. Now the good news is they do get they're going to get an upgrade to their stadium for $500 million. That's the news. But some bad news though. Nick Scorden, who was their second-year linebacker, who was a big part of how the Panthers ended up winning the NFC South, he suffered what believed to be a torn ACL in his right knee on the first day of their camp. And look, that's that's a big blow to that defense with the Panthers, and they've already lost. They already lost one of their top O-line guys. Like he's on the PUP list, so that's a big loss for that Panthers D line. So look, I think if you're the Bears, you want to make sure you avoid any big injuries coming in because it can change your trajectory of your team very quick.
Yeah. And with the Carolina Panthers, we talked about the improvement of Bryce Young on the opposite side of the ball last year. But like I said, their defense was very active last year. Look how they upset a couple of teams, including the LA Rams in that during the month of December last year. They damn near did it again in the wild card round last year. So they're young and hungry Panthers defense, as you mentioned. Now it takes a step back, and with their first opponent being the Chicago Bears on September 13th, if they have any more injuries to that defense, is definitely going to cause problems as they try to repeat as NFC South Division champs. But using the Bears as an example, which will be the Panthers' first opponent, Colston Loveland, we all know what he did last year, especially in the second half of the year. He definitely can't attack any defense, including that young Carolina defense. And let's not forget about the running game as well. Carolina they were one of the top teams in the league to stop the run last year. We all know that the Bears can run the football. So DeAndre Swift entering his free agent year, and we know Kyle Manon will start his second year out of Maryland. The Carolina Panthers, this is a big challenge ahead of them with training camps opening now. You're unfortunately going to have in injuries and whatnot because of the nature of the sport. But the questions will amount around the league. How much depth do you have, and who's going to step in and step up to take up the extra playing time? Can you find difference makers within your second or third place guys on your roster?
Well, remember, J.C. Horn was out for a few of those weeks, those last few weeks last year, and who knows if he had been there for that game against the Rams. And look, he should be back, back practicing. So I know Coach Canales said that. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, look, Gordon being out, that's going to be a big loss for that defense. But look, they still got Devin Lloyd, they still got Mike Jackson and Nick Scott. So and Derek Brown as well. He was all pro. So I think you have to say that look, I think this is sort of like they still got a solid defense with Gordon out. So I wouldn't give the Bears the win of that game just because. I mean, we'll see what happens throughout camp, but that's going to be kind of like a fascinating thing to look forward to. Like I said, just avoid injuries if you're any team, coming to training camp, especially these next couple of days. A really quick break, of course, we'll go into the ESPN layoffs, and also ESPN are going to be lots of some college football shows, it looks like, also too, as well, and a few other things. Tom Brady and kind of his sort of renaissance, if you will, doing all of the media stuff. Also, the Duke-Michigan game was supposed to commence in November, but December, I should say, but that's not happening. We'll explain that. And so much more. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Chicago, our Sports Potpourri segment coming up right after this.
Poof! Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago on the hashtag Friday Funk Edition. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. You listen to Sports Zone Chicago. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG.
This is our last break of the show for today and for the week in our sports potpourri segment. So, any questions or comments that we have on the topics we have discussed thus far in today's show, from the LeBron James Philadelphia signing to the return of Patrick Kane back home to the Blackhawks, to Cubs, Sox, Bulls, Bears, any of the topics that we discussed so far in today's show, you can definitely hit us up right now in our last break of the show for today and for the week at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
All right, to sports media news, and it was not so good news on Tuesday for ESPN. Another round of layoffs, and some of those names are some long timers. We'll start with this one. Ryan Clark. There have been some rumors about when did he find out, or when did he find out, or he found out Mitchell was doing NFL Live or whatever. I guess the rest of them knew. I'm talking about Laura Rutledge and Mina Kimes, and I believe that was Dan Orlovsky who was with them on that Monday show. And then I guess Clark wasn't there anymore. He's done some interviews since, so that kind of sort of like classless move there. But he wasn't forced out. He actually apparently he made the decision. That he made a decision to leave himself. He left the set. He didn't want to make it a big deal about it, so he just left. So of course, Super Bowl champion, safety, also went to a couple of Pro Bowls with Pittsburgh. He was making $2 million a year, and he still had a year left under his contract. So, but I'll get to some comments that Emmanuel Alcho made in a second. I'll get to that one in a bit here. But Carl
Tell us someone seeking attention.
Yeah, exactly. Carl Ravage, of course. Look, I remember, right? I mean, but we'll get to him in a second. But yeah, Carl Ravage, who had been there for 33 years. I remember when he first came on. He did his very first Sports Center. He had done a lot of college basketball. He actually did Phillies and Dodgers on Monday. That unfortunately ended up being his last broadcast. Apparently, he found out, I guess, from one of the reporters who got leaked the story of him finding out about that. So that was just just awful how they handled that. Also, David Lloyd too. He had been there for almost 30 years, since '96. I remember when he first came on Sports Center, a long time Sports Center anchor. Also, Cam Newton. I think there was some comments that he made on Jason Whitlock's podcast. I think that had more to do with that than anything. But I'll let you figure that out. Stefania Bell, of course, the longtime injury expert. She had been there for 20 years. Also, Bart Scott. Poor Chris Garland. I mean, he and Garland were doing the show together, and I guess he basically had to do the Tuesday show by himself. Like, wait, huh? So he shows around the 3 hours, but that's not he's doing a 3 hour show by yourself. I mean, we know some guys and gals that can do that, but that's a lot. But yeah, some of the others. Tom Pelissero, I'll get to him in a second because NFL Network. He kind of figured with them buying NFL Network, talking about ESPN, he had to think that maybe, especially with Rappaport, he got a new deal, and also of course Adam Schefter as well. Unfortunately, the Pelissero thing is not surprising. I think I know where he should go. I'll get to that in a second. And also, Charles Davis. He had been there for about 20 years. He's still at CBS. He's going to be doing his first year doing to be the number one guy for college football. So he's going to do fine. But Sid, what do you think about these layoffs?
Yeah, this business can be cold and heartless. It's just like any other business. And unfortunately, I've been laid off twice, and being laid off is not a good feeling. It's not just this business, but any job that you have. So anytime you've been laid off, is not a good feeling. So best wishes to those people that were laid off. Of course, ESPN went through this about a decade ago, and I think a lot has to do with the rights fees that they pay for all the sporting events that they have on that channel. Let's not forget they brought back the NHL a couple years ago. The new NBA contract, the new 11-year NBA contract with the league with all its television partners started last year, and ESPN is a part of that. Let's not forget that they invested more into college football and basketball, so they have to pay for that. And of course, the NFL. And I know some people say, what are they going to do for the NFL coverage this year? I think they'll be fine eventually, but with them broadcasting the Super Bowl, it's ESPN/ABC this year, broadcasting the Super Bowl from Los Angeles. What are they going to do? I think they'll have enough people to still get the job done. But I think these two people are much to blame, according to some people's eyes, because they're paying Pat McAfee a lot. I think $60 million a year. Remember, he took the bag from ESPN a couple of years ago. He still owns the majority of his show. Just the thing that ESPN quote unquote owns is the 2 hours that they have of his show on their airways every day from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Of course, Stephen A. Smith is getting paid a whole lot of money over there, but he doesn't have the power you think he has over there. So people that need to accept that fact. So with those two personalities that the ESPN is trying to ride the coattails of, I think that has a lot to do with that as well. There's a difference between being laid off and being fired. People have to get that straight through their heads as well. So, but ESPN has a lot of people to pay a lot of those right fees they had to hold up. So you got to make cuts somewhere. Unfortunately, the on-air talent was affected once again.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate too. And the McAfee thing, I know it's like people say, well, they're paying him $60 million. Look, I think people got to remember too, like you said, he still owns it, but look, that's production folks, and they got to pay a lot of his guys that help run his show. So that's where the $60 million is coming in. I know Stephen A. Smith. Look, Cam Newton, he I don't watch first fake as we call it here on this show, but he's been a good kind of like adversary, and I think he had made some comments on Jason Whitlock's podcast about a month ago, and I think that had more to do with it than anything. But again, that's just my opinion. But yeah, so it's just unfortunate that this is sort of and our buddy Russ Dorsey, of course, from Apple TV. I think he said it best. And look, this is business, and also from Yahoo Sports as well. He can, he said it best. He said, look, this business can love you, but it can also treat you horribly too at the exact same time. So I know he said that he has people, DM him saying that, hey, what should I do to get in this business? But look, sometimes, like he said, that line of being appreciated, but also they can also cut you just like that. I think that's the pitfalls of this. So just gotta blow with the punches.
Yeah, I saw that tweet from Russ Dorsey early this week. He's absolutely right. So you had to wear about 2 or 3 hats, and as we talked about before, the landscape is changing in media and everything. But sticking to with this subject here, the landscape is changing in media, It's not just that we get everything from ESPN or Fox or anything. Those networks are still going to exist, but the rise of social media, like what we do, everybody's trying to get into this space. There's only the strongest going to survive. I know people, well, you got to chase algorithms. Not everybody can do that, and not everybody's going to do that. So you have a whole lot more options out there now. And I just wanted to say, I'm sure we'll get into this more in the future, but I don't know if you saw this, LaKeena, but Frank Thomas, who was let go just before around this time last year by NBC Sports Chicago, now CHSN, he started his own media company. So he's trying to reach out to new talent to help run his company, his media company. So, fans, as we said, fans need and want more options, and being in this space gives the opportunity for people to do that. So, ESPN, it's not just ESPN and Fox and NBC anymore. You watch those networks for live sporting events, but in particular for Sports Center, I'll be honest with you, LaKeena, unless it's early in the morning, I'm trying to catch up. I don't watch Sports Center like that anymore. Will we go back to the days that we were accustomed to growing up? No. Do I like it? No. But do I accept that fact? Yes. But it seems like to me that ESPN is trying to hurry up and catch up with the times. And I'm not going to say it's going to be too late for them, but that's how they're operating right now, especially with them bringing over Pat McAfee a couple years ago.
Yeah, and look, I can tell you right now, I have not watched an episode of Sports Center fully in about, let's see, 1, 2, carry the one, about 3 years. Like 3 years. I mean, look, I do watch it when it's like a college football game or a college basketball game or something. I watch, okay, I'll say this. I watch SVP Sports Center. That comes after some of the big events and games and stuff. That's one of the only sports that I really watch. I don't watch any of the other ones. And we know people who work there, so I'm not. This is not a dig towards them, but it's just that someone posted. I know it still goes. It went viral, but that was that picture of the old Sports Center stuff from the mid '90s. You had folks like Carl Roberts, who was in that picture. Of course, Robert Roberts was before she evolved into news, and of course, she's been doing GMA forever now, and also Gary Miller, Steve Levy, so many others. Also, Rich Eisen, the late great Stuart Scott. I mean, I think it's one of those things where you're just like you yearn for those days, but look, people got to realize that those days are gone. And look, with quick sound bites and hot takes, it's just like, I'm not into that. If you're into that, fine, but that's just never been my style, and I'm not going to change it. So unless it's like from after a big event, I don't watch Sports Center like that. I still watch PTI. I love PTI. Look, Tony and Mike, they're still going at it at their advanced ages, but I don't really watch ESPN like that. I do watch Get Up every day, but other than that, I don't watch ESPN outside of live sports like that, like I used to.
Yeah. And just going back to the NFL coverage you mentioned about Adam Schefter and I forgot Ian Rappaport. Ian Rappaport. Let's not forget they have Peter Schrager on their roster too. So that's probably why Tom Pelissero unfortunately is out. And so you have the big names that covering the number one sport in our country, but like you said, it's just too many big names to go around. But you have to pay those people as well. So. As we talked about with Sports Center, they added some new talent over the last few months. We know a couple of them. So I know change is inevitable, especially in this business. And so ESPN is going through that right now. So what's the future look like for that network? I don't know. Outside of the sports I just mentioned, but like you said, the times are changing. Like you said, you're not just dependent on Sports Center anymore, like we used to, because it was the only option. Just like we talked about, not to get off the subject here, but that's like we talk about. We had these conversations about music. We were forced to listen to the radio back in the day. We were forced to watch BET, MTV, VH1 in the box. We have old school TV Monday, not too long ago. As far as getting our music now. Social media, you could download your music, listen to it on your phone whenever you want to. You don't have to depend on radio anymore like we were forced to when we were growing up. So the times are changing, and it's the strong that survives, who understands this model, and it could be a step or perhaps 2 steps ahead in this case.
Yeah, and also too, the Tom Pelissero is great. I think I might have a new home for him now. Jonathan Jones, who was the NFL insider for CBS for the last 7 years, he's moved on to The Athletic, there's an opening there. So
Yes.
could Pelissero, go there now? Again, I think he's still under contract with the NFL Network, so they're gonna probably have to do what they did with Keyshawn a few years ago. They're gonna have to go to a settlement to get him out of that contract. But I think he would be a good fit there. And also, they're still looking for people too. So I think if you're a Pelissero, you're still looking for some options. You got a lot of options, so I don't think you've seen the last of him. He's, like I said, he's one of the great ones up there. But like you said, I mean, with Rappaport and Schefter, you got to think, unfortunately, he was the one that kind of got lost in the shuffle with the new acquisition. Kyle Brandt, of course, who's actually from here, actually. You're going to be hearing him a lot, too. He's going to be doing a lot of studio stuff, too, for ESPN, for both the college and the pro side, so you're going to be hearing him a lot. So it's sort of like a consolidation, if you will, with the NFL Network and ESPN now. So unfortunately, this is sort of this is how it's working. Unfortunately, in 2026, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I remember when young Kyle Brandt, The Real World Chicago in 2001. Of course, they had that famous episode. Of course, they were filming here at the time when 9/11 occurred. So that was one of the most memorable episodes that I remember from that season. We'll talk about that down the road for Old School TV Monday. But I think another question that should be brought up: what's going to be the future of that show, Good Morning Football? I know they do I know they do an overtime show. Most Fox Plus used to be UPN affiliates across the country, including Fox Chicago Plus here in Chicago, obviously. But what's going to be the future of that program now that ESPN and NFL Network are officially merged now?
Yeah, so that's going to be another thing, and that's going to be another thing too. So I think that's going to be another thing to figure out too. Now, going back to Kyle Brandt, I remember when he was also Philip Kiriakis for like 3 years on Days of Our Lives. So he's worn a lot of hats in his early television days. But yeah, so it's good to see his star rising, and I know he's going to be a good asset for their NFL coverage coming up. But yeah, I think it's sort of one of those things where I don't know. I mean, look, if you saw the raise for the local radio ratings, look, ESPN Radio, the 1000, they're back. But look, I mean, the score is number 2. Look, I think it's ESPN 1000. I would thought that maybe it'd be a little bit higher, especially with the White Sox doing so well this year, but that hasn't been the case. So I don't know, but yeah, it's kind of weird how all this they do with the rating system, because I watch a lot of those things on YouTube. I don't watch on linear radio anymore. So I just watch on my YouTube, on the YouTube app on my phone. So I just do it that way. So yeah, there's lots of ways you can consume your sports entertainment. You don't have to watch it for like 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours. You watch it and go back and watch it for podcasts and live stream like you do here with us. So but yeah,
yes,
it's that option is always it's always a interesting option.
Yeah, I saw that tweet from a friend of the show, Jeff Agers, who's a sports media critic, and he's covering the White Sox as of now for the Chicago Sun-Times, and he has said in one of his tweets yesterday regarding the score in ESPN 1000's ratings. I think everything was counted for now 104.3 the score, their radio ratings in the streaming part of it, but the streaming part of it was not counted for some reason for ESPN 1000. I don't know why that is, but I know that the Cap and J Hood morning show for its time slot for that ratings period beat Mully and Hall. The midday show, I believe, ranked at number 4, but the afternoon show for the score did well, but Waddle and Silvey fell behind. I'm sure I forgot which date that rating period ended, but remember now, you can say this about Spiegel and Holmes too, but some of their shows during the week are affected by afternoon baseball, referring to Cubs and Sox. So you can tell about Waddle and Silvey. I know Waddle and Silvey in particular. I know they do some shows exclusively online when the Sox are playing in the afternoon. I know they did one episode with Margaret G and Gregor. I thought was tremendous. I did that. Yep. I think they did that episode back in early June. And so for those of you that missed it, check it out here on YouTube. But ESPN 1000, as we talked about before, we like the way that they're giving new voices to some of the young talent over there, including our good friend Jack McGrath over there. I know he's a producer for Waddle and Silvey in the afternoons, but you still have Shay Norley over there, Tyler Aki, who's making television appearances over there. So, they bringing in new voices, but, the score, they're still number 1 in some areas here in Chicago, but, what's the future for that station as well? I know they still have the Cubs, so they're riding high off of that. They still have the Bulls, even though Caleb Wilson is going to be a name this coming winter. You really can't really ride that high too much because we don't expect them to be good. But for ESPN 1000 right now, the reason why they're relevant, excuse me, besides their morning show being improved ratings wise, congratulations to them and our guy Jay Hood. But the reason why they're relevant over there is one, is because of the Bears, especially what they did last year. And number two, and now their ratings are improved. I know dramatically with the White Sox, the way they've been winning so far this year. They have an exciting young team. They're still in first place. And Len Casper and Darren Jackson both actually do a good job calling the game. So, ESPN is riding off that wave as well.
Yeah, I think it's gonna. Yeah, I mean, once the Bears season starts, I think that's when we'll see like the ratings and the viewership and the streaming and whatever. So yeah, I think that was a fascinating read by our buddy Jeff Agris. So this was Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena McGee sitting around with you as we're more sports media news here now. All right, the Emmanuel Outro comments about. Okay. I'm going to paraphrase here because I'm going to do a little bit of paraphrase because I'm not going to go through it. It was pretty long what he wrote, but basically what he's saying is that that NFL Live was nothing without Ryan Clark. He made the show relevant and but okay. Well, let's see. Ask Mark Malone, Merrill Hodge. I hope he's doing well. I know he's had some health battles recently. Hall of Famer Sterling Sharp. Our buddy Sean Salisbury, who has his own podcast now, who on his podcast, which you can listen to wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, YouTube, on Pave with Sean Salisbury. That's the name of his podcast. He read Him for Filth last couple of days on his show. But yeah, he was a big part of that too. The late great John Clayton, he was a part of that as well. So to say that Ryan Clark build NFL Live. Okay, Mr. Acho. Now we see why people like your brother more than you, because even he doesn't say stupid stuff like you be saying. But that show's been around about as long as you've been alive, and that show's been relevant about as long as you've been alive. So, and look, this is nothing against Laura Rogers, who I've always been a fan of hers for a long time. She was at Fox Sports Southeast and down in Florida. Mina Khan, though she's made a name for herself. Dana Orlovsky, we also to Mr. Marcus Spears, and also some of the other folks that have sudden back and forth. But to kind of that's an insult to the guys to the previous guys that hosted and have done analysts for NFL Live. Don't do that, Manuel. Don't do it. Don't do it, dude. Don't do it. But that's just my little.
Yeah, I know. He had a show on when it was on Fox Sports 1 called Speak, and it was him, Shane McCoy, and Joy Taylor. And the reason why I laughed is because that guy was seeking attention in more ways than one. I'll leave it at that. As you always say, Google is your friend. For the situation between him and Joy Taylor, we'll leave it at that. Google is your friend for that. But unfortunately, we talked about how many people are starting the podcast to try to excel in the space, and trying to chase algorithms. But it's one thing to have an opinion that's based in facts, which we try to do, based in facts and not based in facts, not noise. But it's another thing to have an opinion based, try to chase algorithms and just say something, to throw something against the wall to make it stick. And I think that was the situation here. And you could be a fan of a person, that's one thing, but to try to trash others for no legitimate reason, that's what I don't like. And you can stick up for your guys to an extent, but you have to personally try to put others down for no reason, just to pump yourself up. That says more about you than the people or a particular person you're trying to trash, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's it's sort of one of those things you're just like, really, this dumb again, but whatever. But yeah, so I just want to get to that little. I don't want to get to like a long tangent about this, but yeah, I mean, it kind of
let it out.
yeah. I mean, look, it's just like crazy how what he said, but. Look, you go back and listen to our buddy Sean Salisbury on his podcast. He, like I said, he reasoned for Phil, so. I know Trey Wingo, of course, he hosted NFL Live too for many years when he was at ESPN. He also did the same thing. So go back and go to their Twitter accounts. Now, as far as ESPN, now they are launching a new college football show with Josh Pate, a former O lineman for the Titans, Taylor Nuwan, and also Will Compton. So this, according to Ryan Glassfield from Front Office Sports, they're going to be launching a new college football show coming up. They're going to be at the same location as College Game Day. In some weeks, they'll actually be shooting from a different location. What time it'll air each Friday, but doesn't sound like appealing to me. Like, if you guys want to watch it, that's fine. But yeah, I'll skip that one. But your thoughts, Sid?
I was going to say, who's going to be the host of that show? Who's the big name? I remember the name of Will Compton. He played in the NFL for a while, but especially for a new show, you got to have a big name who's going to sell it. Who's the big name? Unless I just missed it. Who's the big name? No offense.
No. I know he's been over at Barstool Sports. I know Compton's been at Barstool Sports for a while. I know, of course, Taylor One. Of course, he was a Santa Ana, Michigan, and also, of course, played I think about a decade with the Titans as an old lineman. So I guess they could say Josh Pate. I know he's been making a name for himself the last few years doing a podcast. It's going to be a second year over at ESPN. I don't think you're going to get a lot of people to watch it, but if you want to, I mean, that's fine. But I don't think none of these names are going to wow anybody unless they have Nick Saban or Desmond Howard coming in from time to, or even Pat McAfee if you want to do that. So I don't think a lot of people are going to be tuning into to that show. Sorry, guys, but
yeah, we'll see what happens on that front. Speaking of college sports, LaKeena, you said Duke and Michigan had a matchup planned for, I didn't know which sport, but they had a matchup planned for this fall, but it's not going to happen. We know that the University of Michigan, I know we're time limited and we're not going to get into too much. I know that former AD had to step down because all the stuff's been going on with the head coach and all the cheating scandals over the last 2 or 3 years. But they had an event planned with Duke, and now it's going to be scrapped or moved. What's going on there?
Yeah, this is actually going to be a basketball. It's going to be a rematch of that game, that really thrilling game from in March, with of course Duke prevailed in that one. This was actually supposed to take place on December 21st, my birthday. It was actually, guys, I guess it was going to air. I think they were trying to figure out like the different like TV, because it was supposed to have been playing at the Marlins Stadium, and of course instead they'll face Texas Tech. You hope a rematch of that in MSG. So I guess they couldn't figure out like the ways to televise it or whatever, and I guess they couldn't figure it out, so that's why they did away with that.
ESPN couldn't scoop in? Oh, that's right. The layoffs.
Ooh, sorry about that. Someone was trying to call me. Sorry about that. But yeah, so yeah, this is according to so it's kind of weird how all that kind of played out and such. So yeah, so it's been like the venues and stuff like that. They couldn't pick a venue. They couldn't figure out who was going to televise it. Is it going to be streaming? Of course, remember Duke has a school deal with Amazon to broadcast their practices. Also to broadcast 3 non-conference games. Right. So I think they wanted to be able to jump in, but ESPN, ACC, they didn't want to come in as well. So it was just kind of crazy how that played out. But now of course, Michigan's gonna be looking for an opponent for December for that week, and Duke's gonna be playing Texas Tech instead at MSG.
Yeah, Michigan shouldn't have a problem finding the quality opponent, so I think they'll get that done in due time. You're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago. LaKeena here with you. Last story of the day before we close up shop for the week. Tom Brady's been acting like a WWE superstar, in my opinion, over the last few weeks. He smacked, I think it was who was that? The one that
Logan
old
Paul.
MMA fighter.
Logan Paul.
Well, Logan Paul, thank you. Yeah, he shoved him. I knew it was staged the first time I saw the clip. And, of course, he's been on a whirlwind tour promoting his other businesses and whatnot. It seems like to me, I'm not going to sit here and say he's going far left, but this is kind of for lack of a better term, weird turn for Tom Brady. I'm not going to say a heel turn, but he really didn't have to stoop that low, in my opinion. But, maybe it's part of a bigger plan. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where you're just like, okay. I know some people will say, look, I think he's just playing around and whatever. Look, I think he's just having fun at his old age. I don't say old age, but he's not that much older than we are. But I think, look, he's having fun. I think he's just geared up for the football season. His guy, Fredo Mendoza, he just signed his rookie contract, so all the Raiders are going to be in that rookie contract. So, that's going to be, interesting to see what he does and such. I think it's just a big, pile of, I think it's just a big, I think it's just a big, I think people are kind of like, he's kind of like having people. So yeah, I think for folks who are, wondering what's wrong with him, I think he's doing just fine. Like, I think he's just having fun. This is actually the first time where he kind of like let loose and just, be himself. So I think we're seeing the real Tom Brady.
Yeah, so we talked about him on the show before, he was allowed to have a personality playing football, in particular under Bill Belichick in New England. We didn't see him as much off the field, and we saw that a little bit with Tampa during his last 3 years of his career. But, it's, with him improving what he did at Fox last year in the second year, that long contract that Fox Sports gave him, it was good to see him improve on his broadcasting skills. I expect it to be stellar for this upcoming year, but I guess he's trying to have that balance between being the football commentator, but also being the fun-loving guy at the same time to appeal to everyone. And we'll see if that strategy will work for him to try to draw more viewers to go watch the NFL on Fox this coming fall.
Yeah, excuse me. I think that's going to be the big thing here too. So yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what he does, but yeah, I think, like I said, I think people are having their thoughts on what he's been doing lately. But like I said, I think, look, his oldest is going to be leaving for college soon. I think he's just having. Look, he took his kids to the World Cup final between Spain and Argentina, and look, I think he's just having fun. Now, speaking of that Spain and Argentina, that the ratings just blasted all the records. 44 million, just over 44 million. Saw that matchup between Spain and Argentina. Of course, Spain over Argentina 1-0, 1 mil, I should say. So those FIFA ratings, I think Fox is saying, look, well, maybe we want to get the World Cup again for 2030, especially with these ratings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, they had the upper hand. What the United States team, men's United States soccer team, what they did for this tournament, it raised the interest here in our country, and with watch parties that were occurring all throughout the United States, and of course the host cities that did a tremendous job hosting the games in our country. You do have that leverage, but as we talked about before, streaming is the name of the game, but just that don't make it exclusively to streaming, and with those streaming companies like we talked about with Apple TV Plus and Netflix and Amazon, they want everything exclusive. They see where the business is going, and they want everything to themselves. And as those companies, from a business sense, I don't blame them. From as a viewer and as a consumer, making everything exclusive to streaming, you pay for 4 or 5 other different services to watch your games, but to watch an event like this that comes around every 4 years exclusively on streaming, I think it's going to be a problem.
Well, the women are going to have that problem too next year, because they're going to be, the Women's World Cup is going to be exclusively on Netflix. And look, the way things are now, I don't think folks are going to, unless Netflix does like a thing where, hey, you can try Netflix for free or whatever for $1.99, whatever for this month, those 4 or 5 weeks during the World Cup. I don't see a lot of people flocking to do that. I just don't see it happening.
I don't either.
All right. Anything else before we disperse?
Nope. It's time to wrap it up and enjoy this weekend before it really gets hot again here next week. So, like you said, baseball, this is still in full swing. We got the trade deadline coming up around this time next weekend. NFL training camps are opening up. Is a busy time. Is hashtag back to football. So, as we continue to march along here, summer's still in full swing, and I'm trying to enjoy every minute of it.
Well, yeah, well, we gotta. sorry, we gotta mention that the WNBA weekend is this weekend. Of course, I think the skills competition.
All Star Weekend, yes.
Yeah. So So and also the skills competition is tonight, and it'll be on the game will be tomorrow night on ABC and streaming on Disney Plus. It's right here in Chicago, so I mean I know the ratings for the games here in Chicago, unfortunately, have not been very good because the sky is not very good, haven't been very good this year. Mm-hmm. So they're going to see a lot of out of towners here coming in to watch some of their favorite teams and players. So if you're into that, go ahead. Like I said, the skills competition will be on ESPN tonight. Tomorrow night's the game itself. That'll be on ABC and streaming on Disney Plus if you're into that.
Yeah, tonight's events will be at Wintrust Arena, and tomorrow night's WNBA All Star game will be at the United Center. And I know there's a lot of festivals going on around Chicago this weekend. Real quick, the Savannah Bananas will be at Wrigley Field for all 3 days. Yeah, tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday. The White Sox will be at Sox Park. I'm not calling it that corporate name. The White Sox will be at home this weekend to take on the Houston Astros. And of course, there's other festivals going around downtown in the various neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. Please, we strongly encourage you here on Second City Sports to use public transportation.
Yep. And also rideshare too, if you can. Or also rideshare too.
Yeah.
If you can. Now, with that said, you can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter, again to IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sidney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Be sure to download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 and 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more game, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 and 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right. And also, too, if you miss a segment when we get into our little tangent about sports media news and stuff like that, or if we have an interview, or, look, if you miss anything, don't worry. You can follow us here on the Sports Show Chicago's YouTube channels. You catch replays of our show, Sean Sierra Sports, The Smoke Fuzz. I know they're going to have a lot to say about LeBron going to Philadelphia tomorrow, so make sure you guys check that out. Catch it anytime, anywhere on the Sports Show Chicago's YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
And of course, like I said, enjoy all the sports coming up this week and stay cool out there and dry out there if you can. Those of you down in the South, look, just hang in there with all the flooding going on. And yeah, enjoy all the sports as we get ready to go into the home stretch here of, right before the NFL season. For Sid, I'm LaKeena from Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. We'll see you guys on Monday.
Go Sox, holla!